Trump thought Canada would roll over. Well, he was dead wrong. When he slapped tariffs on Canada, he probably expected some complaints, a little pushback, but instead, Canada just pulled off a move no one saw coming. A full-blown counterstrike, doing something that could make Alaska feel a whole lot less American, reshaping the way the US and Canada do business forever. That's right, Canada just cut off the US from Alaska. Think about that for a second. An entire US state economically isolated. What does that even mean? How did we get here? And perhaps the biggest question of all, how far is Canada willing to go? Let's break it down. Just why this matters. Alaska, the largest state in the US, spans a jaw-dropping 663,268 square miles of rugged wilderness. It's a land of glaciers, grizzly bears, and some of the most extreme weather on the planet. From bone-chilling winters to remote, untamed landscapes, Alaska is as wild as it gets. But you know what's even more extreme? Its geography. Alaska is one of only 2 US states that isn't connected to the lower 48 by land. Unlike every other mainland state, you can't simply hop in a car and drive there without crossing another country. And that country? Canada. If you want to travel from Alaska to the rest of the US by road, there's only one way to do it, through Canadian territory. The same goes for trucking goods, shipping supplies, and maintaining the state's economy. Alaska depends on Canada far more than most people realize. And that's where things just got complicated, because Canada, they're done playing nice. The spark that lit the fire. What started this feud? It all started with tariffs. Donald Trump imposed aggressive tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, including those from Canada. He claimed the move was necessary to protect US national security and strengthen domestic industries. But Canada, they weren't buying it. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the tariffs insulting. He argued that Canada had been a close ally of the US for decades and that slapping tariffs on their exports under the pretext of national security was a blatant betrayal. And instead of backing down, Canada hit back hard. They retaliated by slapping tariffs on American goods, targeting key industries and exports. From whiskey to ketchup, Canadian tariffs struck back at billions of dollars in US trade. It wasn't just a symbolic move, it was a clear message. Canada wasn't going to be pushed around, and now they've taken things to a whole new level. By blocking US access to Alaska, Canada has escalated the trade dispute in a way no one saw coming. The geography power play, why Canada holds all the cards. Here's the thing, Alaska's only land access to the US runs through Canada. Unlike any other US state, Alaska is completely cut off from the mainland, meaning that anyone driving between the two must cross an international border. And there's just one major highway linking Alaska to the lower 48, the Alaska Highway. This 1,387-mile stretch of road was built during World War II as a military supply route, cutting through Canada's Yukon and British Columbia before re-entering the US at the Alaskan border. Today, it serves as Alaska's economic lifeline, keeping goods, supplies, and people moving between the state and the rest of the country. And guess who controls the biggest portion of it? Yep, Canada. Now, Canada isn't physically barricading the road. There are no tanks, no military checkpoints, and no soldiers standing guard. But they've done something just as effective, something that hits the US where it hurts the most, the economy. They've imposed massive tolls on US commercial trucks traveling through Canada. That means if you're a trucker hauling goods from Washington to Anchorage, you're now facing sky-high fees just to pass through. These tolls add significant cost to every shipment, making it more expensive and less efficient to transport goods to Alaska. And these tolls, they're not just a cash grab, they're a message. The man behind the move, who's calling the shots? Meet David Eby, the Premier of British Columbia, the man at the center of one of the most aggressive economic countermeasures Canada has taken in years. Unlike many politicians who prefer to engage in long-winded diplomatic debates, Eby is a man of action. And right now, his actions are sending shockwaves through US-Canada relations. Eby isn't just reacting to past US tariffs, he's making a statement, a bold, undeniable statement that Canada won't sit back and let its economy be strong-armed. He knows that Alaska depends on the highway highways running through British Columbia, and now he's making sure Washington feels that dependency in the most painful way possible. Instead of relying on empty threats or drawn-out trade negotiations, Eby has taken direct action, hitting US truckers with massive tolls on commercial shipments moving through Canada's westernmost province. He's not hiding his intentions either. He made it crystal clear in a recent statement. If the US wants to play hardball with tariffs, Canada will respond in kind. This isn't just about raising money for infrastructure or balancing trade deficits. It's about leverage. By making it prohibitively expensive to ship goods to Alaska, Canada is flexing its economic muscle, showing that it has the power to disrupt supply chains and dictate the terms of engagement. And the effects, they're already being felt. Alaskan businesses are scrambling to adjust to rising shipping costs, truckers are feeling the financial squeeze, and Washington, they're suddenly realizing that Canada is willing to play tough. Eby's move isn't just a simple policy change, it's a power play, and if the US doesn't respond soon, Canada might push even further. The economic shockwave, how Alaska is feeling the pain. Alaska is already one of the most expensive places to live in the United States, and now things are about to get even worse. Unlike most states, where supplies can be easily transported by road or rail, Alaska depends on long and costly supply chains just to keep store shelves stocked and fuel available. Every added expense in shipping ripples through the entire economy, driving up prices for everyday necessities. Take groceries, for example. In Alaska, food prices are already nearly 50% higher than in the lower 48. A gallon of milk that costs $3.50 in Seattle can easily hit $7 or more in Anchorage. Gasoline prices are just as brutal, often surpassing national averages by over $1 per gallon. Now, with Canada's new tolls on commercial trucks, those costs are expected to skyrocket even further. Alaska State Senator Robert Myers, who is also a trucker himself, has warned that this move could be catastrophic. He summed it up bluntly. If you want to get something up here fast, you put it on a truck, not a barge. And the numbers prove him right. More than 57% of all manufactured goods in Alaska arrive by truck. That's roughly 13,170 tons of cargo every single day. Everything from fresh produce to medical supplies is dependent on efficient, cost-effective transportation routes. But with these new tolls in place, trucking costs are skyrocketing overnight. Every additional dollar spent on transportation gets passed directly to Alaskan families, businesses, and consumers. The longer this situation drags on, the harder it will hit local economies, forcing businesses to cut jobs, raise prices, or shut down altogether. And as the financial strain grows, Alaskans are left wondering, how much worse can it get? The legal showdown. Can the US fight back? Now, you might be wondering, isn't there some kind of agreement preventing Canada from doing this? Surely the US must have legal grounds to fight back, right? Well, yes and no. Back in 1977, the US and Canada signed a treaty specifically addressing the Alaska Highway, the primary land route connecting Alaska to the rest of the US. This treaty was designed to ensure smooth, uninterrupted transportation between the two countries, recognizing the highway's critical importance for trade and travel. The treaty states in no uncertain terms, Canada will not impose any highway toll or permit any such toll to be charged for the use of such highways by vehicles or persons. Sounds like a solid defense for the US, right? If the agreement explicitly prohibits tolls, then surely Canada is in violation, and Washington can take action to stop it. Not so fast. Legal experts point out that Canada has loopholes to exploit. The tolls in question aren't actually being placed on the Alaska Highway itself. Instead, British Columbia has strategically imposed tolls on other major roads leading to it, effectively forcing truckers to pay up before they even reach the highway. It's a technicality, but a powerful one. By sidestepping direct tolls on the Alaska Highway itself, Canada has dodged a direct violation of the treaty while still making it significantly more expensive for US goods to reach Alaska. Unless Washington can find a way to challenge this maneuver in court, these tolls are likely here to stay, and Alaskans will continue to pay the price. Could Canada take it even further? If Canada really wanted to push the US into a corner, they have other options. Moves that could escalate this trade dispute into an even bigger crisis. What's happening now with tolls might just be the first step in a much larger power play. Most US flights to Alaska pass through Canadian airspace, whether they're commercial flights carrying passengers or military planes on strategic routes. If Canada decided to deny overflight rights, it would force airlines to take longer, costlier routes over the Pacific or the Arctic. For passengers, that means higher ticket prices, longer travel times, and fewer available flights. For cargo planes, it means more fuel, higher operational costs, and serious disruptions to supply chains. And for the US military, it could mean logistical headaches for operations that rely on quick access between bases. In short, Canada has the power to make every flight to and from Alaska a nightmare. Alaska's economy isn't just landlocked, it's also heavily dependent on maritime trade. Over 90% of Alaska-bound cargo arrives by sea, with much of it passing through Canada's Inside Passage, a critical shipping lane that hugs the coastline between British Columbia and southeastern Alaska. If Canada closed this vital route, it would paralyze Alaska's economy overnight. Cargo ships would be forced to take longer, riskier journeys through the open Pacific, delaying deliveries and driving up the cost of everything from fuel to fresh food. Cruise ships, which bring in millions of dollars in tourism revenue, would also be affected. Without access to Canadian ports, many Alaska-bound cruises couldn't legally operate, dealing a major blow to local businesses that depend on seasonal visitors. A shipping blockade wouldn't just hurt Alaska, it would send shockwaves through the entire US economy. If Canada wanted to turn up the pressure even more, it wouldn't have to shut anything down. It could simply slow things down. By tightening border security and customs processing, Canada could create massive delays for US businesses, making it more expensive and unpredictable to move goods and people across the border. Longer wait times at crossings would mean higher costs for trucking companies, supply chain disruptions, and frustration for businesses already struggling with rising costs. Since Alaska depends on goods moving smoothly through Canada, even a minor slowdown could have major consequences. At this point, it's a game of strategy, and so far Canada is making all the right moves. By controlling key transportation routes, Canada has put itself in a powerful negotiating position. The big question now is, will the US push back, or will Canada continue to escalate? Because if this standoff continues, Alaska might not be the only part of America feeling the squeeze. The bigger picture: why this feud won't end soon. At its core, this isn't just about tariffs. It's not just about steel, aluminum, or tolls on highways. This battle is about something much bigger: control. Canada is making a bold statement on the world stage, proving that it won't be pushed around by US economic policies. For decades, the US has dominated trade negotiations, assuming that smaller nations, even close allies like Canada, would simply comply with whatever Washington dictated. But this time, Canada is fighting back, and for Donald Trump, this is the last thing he expected. His entire trade strategy hinged on the belief that Canada needed the US more than the US needed Canada. He assumed that imposing tariffs would pressure Canada into submission, forcing it to accept less favorable trade deals. But as this situation unfolds, one thing is becoming painfully clear: Canada isn't afraid to stand its ground. By strategically targeting Alaska, Canada is proving that it has leverage too. The US may be the bigger economic powerhouse, but size isn't everything in a trade war. Canada has key geographic advantages that it can use to inflict serious damage. And so far, it's doing exactly that. And if Washington doesn't come up with a response soon, Alaska might start to feel like it's not part of America at all.